Good American Family creator on that perspective shift and deciding where to end the show. Before Good American Family, creator Katie Robbins had never done true crime before, and she wasn't exactly looking to try it out. But then she started reading about Natalia Grace, a young girl with a rare form of dwarfism who was abandoned by her adopted parents after they believed her to secretly be an adult. As I was reading the articles and watching the Dr. Phil interviews, I experienced this feeling of my understanding of the story switching, so much depending on whose version of events I was reading. Katie Robbins tells Entertainment Weekly. And that seemed really fascinating to me and really true of the way that we interact with kind of any story. We're bringing our own experiences to it. Robbins knew how she wanted to tell this story, with the first half of it coming from the perspective of adopted parents Christine, Ellen Pompeo, and Michael Barnett, Mark Duplass, and with the back half of it switching to Natalia's, Imogen Faith Reed perspective, causing viewers to question everything they thought they knew in the first part of the series. I really wanted to play with that question of perspective and of bias, particularly around disability and the justice system, and the ways in which we as a society are often really primed to believe one set of people's kinds of stories and not another set of people, not a set of people who are different from us, Robbins says. And that's really dangerous. So that became the way to try to tell the story. With the perspective shift at the core of the story, Robbins and her team of writers also had to figure out where to end the story, given that real-life developments are still occurring. When Hulu first approached me to do the show, it was back in 2020. But by the time we were really in full throttle in the room, the docuseries had come out, Robbins says. And so suddenly it was so much more in the ether and the popular consciousness. And so it was this kind of trick of how much do you acknowledge that? How much do you not acknowledge that? Once again, Robbins focused on one element of the story, the trial to change Natalia's age back. At the end of the day, the thing that is, to our mind, the scariest about it is that there was biological evidence that was available and presented, and that wasn't enough to change Natalia's age in the court of law, Robbins says. That happened while we were in the writer's room. The decision was handed down, and then Christine's charges were dropped. So that felt like the right place to end this kind of the arc of the season. When Good American Family premiered 5 seasons ago, no one, including its creator, Lee Danner, expected it to become the cultural touchstone it did. What began as a dramedy about a Midwestern family grappling with change in the wake of a matriarch's passing became a mirror for shifting American values. And now, as Danner prepares to air the final season, she reflects on what changed in the show's DNA and in herself. When we started, I thought I knew who the McAllisters were, Danner says, seated in her quiet writing bungalow tucked in Laurel Canyon. But somewhere around season 3, I realized I was writing a different story than the one I'd planned. Not because I lost control, but because the family evolved. America evolved. And I had to listen. At the heart of Good American Family was the interplay between 3 generations of McAllisters living under one roof. Stoic grandfather Roy, his pragmatic son Daniel, Daniel's free-spirited wife Talia, and their 3 children, each navigating their own coming-of-age arcs. Season 1 leaned into familiar tropes, school plays gone wrong, awkward dinners, Roy's stubborn refusal to use a smartphone. But it was Season 2's daring flashback episode that changed everything. That episode, The War at Home, was supposed to be a one-off, a look back at Roy during Vietnam, Danner says. But when we aired it, we were flooded with letters and emails. People said, "I see my father in Roy. I never understood him until now." And I thought, okay, this is about more than today's America. From then on, the show began experimenting with format and tone. The storytelling got more fluid. Past and present blurred. The characters grew more nuanced. We stopped trying to assign roles, Danner says. The conservative wasn't always wrong. The liberal didn't always win. We were all just people, trying. By season 4, critics hailed Good American Family as a quietly radical show hiding in plain sight. Viewers praised its willingness to tackle gun culture, climate anxiety, gender identity, and intergenerational trauma, not through sensationalism, but through quiet moments. A father passing a recipe to his son, a mother grieving her sister while helping her daughter come out. And yet, amid the accolades, Danner began to wonder how much longer the story could, or should, go on. I always said I didn't want to overstay our welcome, she says. I'd rather people say I miss them than I'm tired of them. But it wasn't just about ratings or fatigue. The real catalyst came during the writing of Season 5, Episode 3. A bottle episode centered entirely around Daniel and his youngest daughter, Ivy. In the script, the two get lost during a hiking trip and end up talking about climate change, the future, and what family means when the world feels unstable. I wrote that scene in one sitting, Danner recalls. Daniel looks at Ivy and says, I don't know what kind of world I'm handing you, but I know I want to hand it to you with open hands. And when I read it back, I cried, not because it was sad, but because I realized, that's it. That's the heart of the show. And we'd found it. That revelation became the beginning of the end. Once Danner decided this would be the final season, she called the cast and crew for a family meeting at a local diner. No press, no emails, just pancakes and closure. I told them, this is not a funeral. This is a graduation. We made something honest, and it's time to let it live on its own. Still, deciding where to end wasn't easy. The temptation was to go big. Weddings, deaths, grand finals. But Danner knew the show never trafficked in spectacle. We were a porch swing show, she says with a laugh. You sit, you talk, you listen. That's how I wanted to leave it. The final episode, already filmed but kept tightly under wraps, will feature a McAllister family reunion. But it's not a tearjerker, she insists. It's reflective. There's laughter, there's food, there's music. But more importantly, there's perspective. The kids are older now. Roy has slowed down. Everyone's still here, in some form, and we finally understand each other. One standout moment, Danner teases, is a monologue from Ivy, now a young adult, about what it means to inherit not just a world, but a name, a story, a family. She says, I used to think being a McAllister meant fitting into a box. Now I think it means building a bridge. That line, that's the show. That's America, or at least, what I hope it can be. Danner doesn't see this as an end so much as a letting go. People will still be streaming Good American Family in 10 years, I hope. Maybe they'll watch it with their kids. Maybe they'll see something different in it each time. That's the gift of storytelling. You put it out there, and it lives its own life. And what about Danner herself? What's next? She smiles. I'm working on a stage play. About sisters who inherit a failing ice cream stand. Same DNA, family, legacy, humor. But it's small. Intimate, I need to go back to writing with my hands. Before she leaves, she shares one last anecdote. After we wrapped the last scene, Roy's actor, Tom Delaney, pulled me aside. He said, you made me understand my own father. And my son. And then he hugged me. No words. Just that. In the end, Good American Family was never about being perfect. It was about trying, failing, loving anyway. And according to Leigh Danner, that's the most American thing of all.